President Cyril Ramaphosa is promising to make reforms to ensure safety and security to avoid a repeat of last year's July unrest. Over 350 people died, 50 billion rand was wiped from the economy, and over 100,000 people lost their jobs during the riots. Ramaphosa says better police intelligence could have prevented the losses. The president appeared before the South African Human Rights Commission hearing today. Our reporter Manqoba Nkunu is following that story for us. He joins us now live. So the president again admitting that there were failures in government's handling of the unrest. What else is he saying?
Indeed, Shahan. In fact, today we did hear quite a number of concessions from President Cyril Ramaphosa. The first of that is that government's handling of the unrest was poor. He says that there was a lack of coordination when it comes to the different government departments. You recall, of course, that there was that spat between the Minister of Police and the former Minister of Social of Security Agency, Ayanda Dlodlo, of course, about whether or not the police had actually received intelligence prior to the events that we saw unfolding in July last year. And Bheki Cele was quite, insistent on the fact that he had not received any reports or any warnings from the intelligence about what was happening on the ground, while Ayanda Dlodlo, on the other hand, was insisting that they had provided various intelligence products to the police, as well as the president himself. But the president saying that, from the intelligence that they'd gathered from the minister, it seemed that that intelligence was not enough, Shahan. In fact, the president alluding to the fact that, from what manifested on the ground, the intensity that we saw on the ground of how the events unfolded, certainly this was unforeseen, and that those reports that they'd received from the State Security Agency, there were no, reports about the actual events that are going to happen. There was no warnings about the malls or any of the infrastructure that was attacked. But what was there, in fact, was just unhappiness and the protests that had taken place at the time from those who were seemingly supporting the former President Jacob Zuma and those that were protesting his incarceration. So he says that the intelligence at the time was not sufficient, and in fact alluding to the fact that there was a failure in intelligence. But take a listen to what he had to say on this particular issue.
I sought to give that assurance in terms of the processes that we are involved, and I can understand that the confidence of security that our people had really been smashed. And it is for this reason that we have embarked on these reforms, and it is also for this reason that I was prepared to come here, so that I can address the question that's been raised by the Commission, but also to communicate to the nation that we are serious about instituting these reforms. And what the unrest did was really to expose our lack of preparedness in many, many ways, our weaknesses, and much as really one has to look at those who were the instigators of all this, but at the same time we have to look at ourselves.
Mr. President,
we've got to look at ourselves and determine precisely where we take this country. And I think this has been a very useful process.
The president also talking about how police handle the situation on the ground. What's he saying there?
Well, Chan, again, the president admitting that the way in which the police, handled the unrest, they were seemingly caught napping in a time of crisis. Of course, the president didn't put it in those exact words. He says that there were quite a number of challenges that the police had faced, which included issues of capacity. There were issues of resources as well at some of the police stations, even alluding to one of the examples of the Jablani police station and the Jablani mall, which are just opposite each other, but we saw rampant looting that happened there. And this speaks to the issue of resources. The police at the time were caught just watching what was unfolding there at that particular mall. And this is because of the issue of resources. So he says that even if there was intelligence that was provided to the police about what was going to happen on the ground, they wouldn't have even been able to deal with some of the activities that were happening because of the issue of resources. So the president saying, though, that they are looking at certain reforms to try and capacitate the South African police services, but also in terms of the intelligence, because you'll recall, Shahan, that one of the allegations, and in fact what we've come to know, is that the intelligence structure, there were senior officials, 6 of them, that were actually fired prior to the unrest beginning. So the president also making a commitment that they are going to ensure that they fill those vacant posts in the intelligence to strengthen the intelligence. And also he says that the appointment of the new police commissioner, that also is one of the measures that they are taking to try and bring about stability in the police themselves. But take a listen to what the president had to say about the intelligence structures and how they're functioning at the time, including the police's intelligence.
Prior to the unrest, the sum total of the reports, as I was saying, were around this mobilization. Some of it will be MVA are getting together, they are mobilizing, I'm happy with this or that, and sometimes it will be the truck drivers have blocked this road and all that. So none of what finally eventuated was ever pinpointed that this is what is planned. And I guess you could say intelligence failure, security gathering failure. Should it have been known? Yes. Could it have been prevented? I guess that's one of the things that we will need to deal with. So much of what finally happened, we were not fully forewarned about it.
So who's accountable for all of this?
Well, Chan, you recall that Cabinet has said that they will take, collective responsibility for what happened during the unrest. Of course, you would know that we have seen, of course, some changes in Cabinet with Ayanda Dlodlo being moved to a different portfolio. But in terms of the overall accountability, there was a question that was posed to President Cyril Ramaphosa as to whether he has, the number one, and he as the leader of government, the head of state, will actually take any responsibility for what happened during those unrest. He was quite clear that while they have taken a position as cabinet or, as a collective that they're going to take responsibility, he, however, as the commander of the armed forces, he is willing to take responsibility for what happened, saying that, in fact, they were going to be looking at those reports and those recommendations that are also will be made by the Human Rights Commission as to the issue of responsibility. But he does say, Shahan, that he is, in fact, willing to take responsibility. But take a listen to his part on this.
We've been very clear and unequivocal that we do take, as a government, responsibility, and to the extent that people want to split it all up, we would say, yes, we do take responsibility. And I think we did that up front without even mincing our words, without even seeking to hide from it, because there were lapses. There were lapses along the way, which we have recognized. And yes, as Commander-in-Chief, yes, I do take responsibility, because it is important that as we move beyond this, and as we bring about the reforms and the changes, we should know that we have been through a real horrendous period. We've looked into an alley of real darkness, I would say, and we want to emerge from this a lot better, a lot stronger, which is precisely what we are doing now.
All right, we can leave it right there. Reporter Mangoba Nkunu.